So I'll invite you all to please be seated, and I need some help, so I will ask our kids, as many as are willing or want to come up and help. Somebody might have noticed something that's sitting up by the altar this morning, so you don't have to wait for me to call you, just come on up. And then there's only one? It might be a little heavy for Theo to carry all on his own. Okay, so we do have the mystery box. So somebody does need to help Theo. He's going to try, but somebody should help Theo. Okay, careful, gentle. Okay. All right. Now, did that get locked in the process? It did. Good thing I have the key in my pocket. I had the key in my pocket. It's there. It's just underneath the microphone. Okay. Lift it up. All right, now, Theo might need a hand. Who can tell me what was in the mystery box? What was in the mystery box? Okay, there's a couple of coins and a special jug. Now, that's all right. So, here's a quick question. Are there enough coins there to share with everybody?
No.
Okay. Can you choose somebody and give them the coin so that they can just hold them up to show everybody? And then just hold it up really high. So there's just 2 coins, so there isn't really enough to share with everybody. And then can you hold this up really, really as high as you can? Now, most of you might not recognize what this is. Some of you might. It's a very decorative coffee carafe. And some of you might know I like coffee, maybe a little bit too much. This is typically used for serving Arabic coffee or Turkish coffee, but it's a coffee service. So it's meant for sharing. Is there anything in there? No, it's empty. So at the moment, it's not so good for sharing. So now, does anybody remember what's special about this box? The secret compartment in the bottom. Okay, you got to lift up really hard. Okay. All right, and now what's all that? There's some money. It's Monopoly money, but okay. Now, conceivably, is there enough money there to share with everybody?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, for the moment, can I get you to start handing that out to the other kids? Now, in the gospel reading today, Jesus is telling a story about a man and his master, and the man was supposed to be managing wealth and property. At the very end of the story, Jesus said something to his disciples that were gathered. Does anybody remember what Jesus said to his disciples? Does anybody remember what Jesus said to his disciples? Not at all, because they're all distracted by the money and the shiny things, right? So, what Jesus said at the end of the gospel reading was, you can't serve 2 masters. You can't serve both God and money. You kind of have to choose one. Can anybody tell me, if you were to just look at the world, can anybody tell me what one of the problems is that we have in the world? What's related to holding the money and that kind of thing? If people were to make a choice, if you see people in the world Are they choosing to serve God, or are they choosing to serve wealth?
Wealth.
All too often, we get distracted, maybe by shiny things and other things, and whether we mean to or not, sometimes we end up serving wealth and not serving God. So it's not easy sometimes, with everything that's going on in the world, to choose to serve God. We have to work really hard. We have to try really hard. And not just with monopoly money, but with everything. Now, the gold coins, who still has, there's a gold and silver coin. Oh. That's okay. The gold and silver coin there, is there anything in particular? Are they real gold and silver? No. What are they made of? What was that? Chocolate. They're 2 chocolate coins. So even if they weren't actual gold and silver and there's not enough to share with everybody, they're chocolate coins, and there's still not enough to share with everybody. So if you only had those 2 coins, this is what we call a leading question. What might you be tempted to do if there wasn't enough to share with everybody? Split it? But what if there isn't enough to split with everybody? Would you just, you might just decide to eat it all up. There's not enough to share with everybody, so you might just keep it for yourself and eat it up. Now, there's a character from stories. Has anybody heard of Robin Hood? Robin Hood. And what was Robin Hood famous for? Sharing. Sharing in a particular way. What's sort of the tagline? Yeah, go ahead. Stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. Doesn't sound too bad, right? The only problem is, in that story, or in the various versions of that story, stealing from the rich sometimes involved harm, whether it was harm to property or harm to other things. So we're all for an equal distribution of wealth to make sure that everybody has enough, but we have to make sure that we're not hurting people when we do that. And this is part of the challenge of following in Jesus' footsteps and the mission of the church, is trying to make sure that there is enough to share and making sure that we're not hurting people. So, one other quick image. So this is mine. It was a gift to me. But you know what? I have to confess something. I've never actually used it for what it was intended for. For somebody who likes coffee as much as I do and appreciates all the different coffees, I have not used this gift very well. I've not actually used it and made Arabic coffee and put it in there and served it to other people. It's been sitting kind of as a decoration in my office. That's not what it was made for. That's not what it was intended for. It was supposed to be used to share, for hospitality, to help welcome people. There's something in today's gospel as well with that idea of serving God or serving wealth. And the idea is about sharing and hospitality. Because whereas Jesus is talking about money and what we do with wealth in the world, he's sort of saying we can use the wealth of the world for good things. But he's at the same time talking about those gifts that God gives us. Because if we just want to hold on to that wealth, or we just want to keep those chocolate coins all to ourselves, or even if we just want to keep the beauty of something all to ourselves, we're not using it for maybe what it is good for, what it's intended for. And so God's gifts to us, God's love, God's grace, and God's mercy, they're not meant to be just kept for ourselves. They're meant to be shared with everybody. Everybody in our church community, everybody in our wider St. Catherine's community, at our schools, at our workplaces, everywhere we go, we're supposed to share those gifts that God gives us. Because if we try to just keep them to ourselves, it doesn't stay as love and grace and mercy. It turns into selfishness and greed and the things that keep us apart from one another. So it's really important for us to use those gifts that God has given us to share them with others. And maybe sometimes it's as simple as a smile. Sharing a smile with someone to make them smile too. Sharing some love with someone so that they feel loved the same way that we feel loved. Being able to forgive someone in the same way that we've been forgiven. Jesus asks the question in the gospel, who is able to do this? Who is able to share that wealth and to share these gifts? Who is able to? And God is able to. That's the answer. God is able to share with us, and we are able to share with others. And when we sometimes make mistakes, when we're sometimes imperfect, God's grace and God's love and God's mercy, we're reminded that we're forgiven and we're able to share, even if we make mistakes. We keep trying. So, my commitment is that I'm actually going to make some Turkish coffee and use this to serve others. What I would ask you guys to do is, whether it's Monopoly money or chocolate coins, is to make sure that you're sharing those with others. Make sure that you're sharing your smiles with others. Make sure that you're sharing your love with others. Make sure that you're sharing forgiveness with others. And by doing that, we make the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, happen right here where we are. Anywhere we are, whether it's here in the church, school, out in the community. We do have that choice. Are we going to serve wealth, or are we going to use wealth to serve God? God. That's right. I didn't pay him for that. But we have that choice before us. So we choose to serve God and to share those blessings that God gives us with everyone. So let's share God's grace and God's love and God's mercy. Amen. All right. Just dump all that stuff back in the mystery.